It began as a commemoration for the war dead who gave their lives during the Civil War. It was called Decoration Day, and people would go to the cemeteries to lay wreaths and put flowers on the graves of those who had died in the Civil War. But then came the First World War, one of the most devastating events of the beginning of the 20th century. After that war, Decoration Day became Memorial Day, an opportunity to remember all those who have died in service to our country in all the wars. But the name Decoration Day stayed for quite a long time. I remember growing up that my grandmother and grandfather often referred to the last Monday in May as Decoration Day. You know, when the United Kingdom entered the First World War in 1914, the British Foreign Secretary Edward Grey, sensing the horror that was now on the horizon all over Europe, he famously said this: "The lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again in our lifetime." Sadly, that was not to be the last war of the 20th or the 21st century. And yet what has remembered in all of these conflicts and wars is the same: the brave men and women who made the greatest sacrifice. They gave their youth, they gave their lives for peace, for the freedoms that we sometimes take for granted, for justice. They gave their lives for the people of our country and the countries of the world. The light of their lives may have gone out, but the light of who they were and what they did still shines brightly. You know, today's first reading, I think, is beautifully appropriate, quite by coincidence, as we begin the Memorial Day weekend. The book of Msgr was written about 200 years before the time of Jesus by a very wise scholar, a religious man living in Jerusalem. And the book is filled with all kinds of advice about faith and friendship, about education, poverty, wealth, various laws, and religious worship. He focuses on many of the current issues of his time, and his desire was to help his contemporaries, as well as the next generation, to understand how they were to live their faith authentically, strongly, in a very real way in their daily life. I'd like to read today's first reading so that you can hear these beautiful words. "Now will I praise those godly men, our ancestors, each in his own time. But of others there is no memory, for when they ceased, and they are as though they had not lived, they and their children after them. Yet these also were godly men. Their virtues have not been forgotten. Their wealth remains in their families, their heritage with their descendants. Through God's covenant with them, their family endures, their posterity for their sake. And for all time, their progeny will endure, their glory will never be blotted out." You know, when Sirach wrote those words, he was talking about the men and women of faith who had come before, not just the previous generation, but all the generations before, the people whose wisdom, whose risk, whose sacrifice, whose faith in yesterdays made the todays possible. As followers of Jesus, we have to always remember we are part of a much bigger story, the story of those who lived before us in other times and in other places, who lived the faith, who strengthened the faith, who guided the church, and who helped it by their example. And we have to realize that we will always get it wrong when we forget that we have to live the faith. We have to spread the faith by our own example, because we too are part of this great story. It's always admirable to say somebody's a self-made man or she did this all on her own. But the truth is, that is never the entire story. Because for every story, for your story and mine, there is someone in our faith history, our cultural heritage, our personal history, who paved the way for us, and we must never forget them. Today would have been my dad's 89th birthday. He served in the Coast Guard, and my dad was a very proud veteran. My family, including my sister, who today celebrates her birthday as well, we think of the many ways our dad paved the way for us and how we stand on his shoulders, on his faith. So with the world opening up, as we begin to enter a post-pandemic world, there are going to be a lot of people this weekend who are happy to be with friends and family, to be at the beach, to be in the backyard, to celebrate what is thought of as the unofficial beginning of the summer. But could you, this weekend, take a moment and remember the real reason for this weekend? Can you maybe even share that message, share this video with someone, just to ask them to stop for a minute from all the much-needed fun and remember those who came before us, who gave their lives for the freedoms that we have often taken for granted. We may not know the names of anyone who gave their life for our country, but they were somebody's son or daughter. They were somebody's brother or sister. They were somebody's husband or wife. They were somebody's mom or dad. They were someone's friend. They are part of our story, and their glory will never be blotted out.